Mike here. So there are two stories that gained my attention today as in cultural theory. First was Trump and his inability to use language correctly. He shouldn't have said it's a hoax. What he would say is my involvement's a hoax, or instead of saying that they're denying the people's truth, who obviously had one. You know, they were unintentionally hurtful words, and he was talking more about the organizers. He could have said something like, it's sad that people are using these women for political purposes. These people are being, they're extending their victimhood, something like that, something thoughtful, something he should have asked his chief of staff about rather than saying it himself and maybe just issued a statement. See something. Yeah, I knew he was a scumbag, and now I know why. My heart feels for these people. Not this is a hoax. 'Cause he probably does. That's the thing. He's not as much of a monster as you think. He just doesn't. He's not verbal. Okay, he shoots from the heart. But if it's his autonomy versus somebody else's, he's kind of emotionally unskilled as well. He's self-centered. His emotions are self-centered. And his ability to see the large implications, that's also his worst thing. So, yeah. So that's the Donald. I apologize for all men at his speaking, the way he spoke about it. What he should have said was, this story is concerns us all, or troubles us all, and I hope I hope these women find closure. And I'll leave it to my Justice Department to help them do so. So, yeah. Because frankly, if I were them, I wouldn't want all my stuff out there. Originally they didn't. And for them, it may be cathartic. So, it's like if it's cathartic to them to release their pain, then I'm not going to stop it. Something like that. But I hope I'm hoping they don't re-victimize themselves. Something very liberal, you should say. Or have somebody say that for him, and not the blonde, which is sexist of me to say, but yeah, somebody who actually looks like they have some empathy. He needs a spokeswoman who's not trying to win points in a debate, one that explains things with some savoir-faire, which is not his current press aide. So yeah, he needs to find somebody who can calmly not play with the press, but say things like that. And Melania doesn't want it. It'd be perfect for Melania if she were that verbal. She's not. I mean, it's a second language to her. She doesn't think in English. She does, but she's reserved. A lot of people are if their first language is in English, and she's got deep heart. You can tell. But she's got the shells of any model. So maybe Ivanka. Although she's not, she's emotional. She gets her emotional security from her maturity from her parents. So it's too bad he alienated his niece. She would be perfect for talking him out of this instead of screwing her over and her parents over. If he'd have just had good family love, such that if she'd have gotten what she deserved as a person from the family, maybe even be able to help him rather than resent him, she would be wonderful at handling the situation for him. But that's in a world that doesn't exist right now. But she would and now she's gained a profession, talking down her uncle rather than saying, rather than doing a little, being an apologist for the family. Saying, yeah, we don't speak emotional. I do, and what he was trying to say is this. So it shocked a lot of people. Shocked her uncle. It's time for families to not snipe at each other publicly sometimes. As a political force, and as a political force, Trump meets the needs of his constituents emotionally, not obviously not economically. He's surrounded by people who think they can, but until he insists on a higher minimum wage and on more even distributions of a COLA, you're not going to show, you're not going, and even much higher job tax credits. He's got to out-liberal his base. I mean, he's got to really, really, really raise the level of support for his base, but not his partisan. Excuse me, his base could use a lot of liberal love economically. His party politicians, I mean, he owns them. If he were to actually abandon the ideology of the Heritage Foundation and the Cato Institute, he would be one of the great presidents if he had real economic change instead of, about to preside over, an economic collapse and die in the process. So, this is his last act. He can either make it a good last act, which means making amends with his niece, bringing her on board, letting her say what she needs to say and say, look, I want to do this, I want to do that. Get rid of Miller. Just get rid of Miller. He's the new fixer. Really, he's the new Michael Cohen, which is a step down from Michael Cohen. Yeah, he needs to make peace with his niece and get rid of that pinch-faced idiot cousin of mine, as I'm sure we in the tribe are all related in some way. So, so I'm a better Jew than he is, even though I don't practice, and I'm not technically a Jew because my mother was, my father was, well, no, my father was Jewish. He just wasn't religious. If he'd have stepped into a synagogue once, then I could get myself. I would easily convert as Reform, but because he didn't, I'd have to go through the whole conversion process. It wouldn't be bad. It's as valid a religion as any other. I'm a universalist, but anyway, that's about me, not Trump. He could get himself out of where he is now, but he has to listen to people like me. If he doesn't, he'll get what he's getting, which for him is probably fine. He'll get validation. He's getting validation, but it's going to be awfully bad, and there's a lot of potential there that he's wasting. He could do a lot of things. He could move conservatism into what Bush wanted it to be, more compassionate. He's inching that way, but he's not running that way. And he needs to run that way because the people who voted him need payback. It's not just the visceral, I'm with you, I'm a bro kind of thing. It's actually making being a Republican pay for lower working class working class voters of all races. If he does that, then get somebody he can listen to. So somebody whose TE he can respect and even fill in his gaps. And that could be me. Yeah. Some of the same cognitive functions, just in reverse. So, but he's got to find somebody. And then there's the next. Speaking of cognitive functions, Florida. The Florida Surgeon General. He was not talking science. He was talking feelings. You know that and values. That's wrong thing. That's cultural speak. That's emotion speak. That's authenticity speak. That's I wouldn't call it egalitarian speak, except in that conservatives want to be considered, they have their own sect. It's sectarian speak. It's right wing sectarian speak. You know, crypto fascist, I think is the word we used to use for it back in the day. In the left, he's like he's set in the emotional section of the authenticity section in my version of a cultural grid. Meaning he can speak both as an individual sensate and as a member of the group, and because he's more individualistic than the average reactionaries aren't purely liberal. Aaron was right. They're not. There is a difference between how, and the people, my colleagues in culture, they're correct that they're different enough. There's more individuality in right wing radicalism, so much but it's still the same brand of feelings first, and facts later. It's about authenticity for both camps, but it's still the same. I mean, you could draw a shape in the cultural grid to make it be a little more equal than I had planned it to make it 22% rather than just 11. Which makes sense. So it's not neat boxes. It's like there's a box over here, there's a box over here. There's a square in the middle with 1%. So yeah, a box over here, and then a big box for those of us who live in more than one place, who don't like to be called fatalists. So, and I mean, the Surgeon General of Florida, he's speaking morals, he's speaking values, and not speaking science. So, yeah, it's akin to fascism, if not actual fascism, for the Volk. So, yeah, and that's today in culture. Tomorrow class begins. Pity me.